Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we are breaking the narrative. What do I mean? Well, normally I come on, I stream, I get all angry and I say a lot of stupid stuff and you guys laugh and carry on and chat and, you know, it's a relatively good time, but I'll tell you what. I ran into a channel today. It is a newer channel on YouTube, and as a matter of fact, I'm a number 2 subscriber to this channel. I've left a @ to this person in the description of this stream if you guys are interested in checking a fresh potato out. I highly recommend it. It's a newer channel's perspective. I think he said he's been playing the game for about 7 months. So, a newer channel, but a very grounded channel as well. And he had some great words to offer in the video that I just linked in the community section, the discussion on the channel. So highly recommend you guys check that out if you guys want to know more about what I'm talking about. But one of the things that I have seen and heard is that the game as a whole does not do enough to teach newer players, and so it's up to us content creators, those of us who make videos on the game, to do our best to try to spread some positivity about the game, as well as give some advice to newer players. So that's what this stream's going to be all about today. It's going to be reaching out to those newer players, those of you who've been playing the game less than a year, and maybe don't know everything there is about the game. And full disclosure, despite the fact that I have played this game since the beginning, back in alpha testing, despite that, I still do not claim to know everything there is to know about this game. In fact, I always claim to be slightly above average. Okay? So I think I have a pretty good feel for the basics of the game that I can share with you guys to help you get better. Why? Because I'm hopeful that at some point in the future that the games will start to become more fun. Because let's face it, World of Warships Legends has a player base problem. Yes, sure, lots of us like to point at the developers and say, hey, you guys are doing things wrong. But there is an innate problem with World of Warships Legends that has nothing to do with the developers. Are there steps the developers could take to make the player base better? Absolutely. Are they going to? Probably not. So, I'm going to do my best today to go over some of the basics throughout the course of this stream to hopefully help you guys out. Maybe you'll learn something today. That is the goal. Okay? Again, not the best player in the world. I'll pull up my stats. I ain't scared. You guys want to see my stats? It's terrible. I got terrible. Okay, I don't have some terrible stats, but I have okay stats. Okay, above average stats. I'm not super uni. I'm not top 1% of World of Warships Legends, despite all of the good games that I put out there for you guys. I am right there above average in the what we would call unicum status. Right? I'm right there in the top, 5 to 10%. Okay? That's where I'm at. And I'm okay with that. I don't want to be the top sweaty person. Like, I just don't. That's not my playstyle. It's never been my playstyle. But what I do have is a basic understanding of the fundamentals of the game. And that's what we're going to be going over. So welcome to the stream, everybody. Hopefully you guys are going to have fun. If you're going to enjoy this stream, make sure you punch that like button. If you learned something, punch that like button as well. And don't forget, we are on the path to 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you haven't yet subscribed, perhaps you're new to World of Warships Legends, new to my channel, punch that subscribe button. Be a part of that journey. But for now, let's get this party started. First of all, let's open some containers. First of all, I don't know if you guys noticed, I did it without even thinking. I went into the store, went over to the offers section of the store, and I got my daily free crate. That is something that I do every day, despite playing this game for over 4 years. Every single day that I log in, I go in here and I grab my free crate. Why? Because free stuff is awesome stuff. Also, if you get into the habit of coming into the store on a daily basis and grabbing your free crate, you will notice some things pop up from time to time in the featured section, such as, hey, we screwed up, we're sorry, here's some free stuff. You'll see it right here, usually in the top 3. So keep an eye out for that sort of stuff. It comes in handy, right? Also, thank you to Matt's HD Garage for the 1-month re-up, and Chevy Speed for the 5 months re-up. Make sure you guys drop some goats in the chat for those guys. But, yeah, so there will be free stuff in here occasionally, and as long as you're in the habit of coming into the store and grabbing your free crate every day when you log in, you will be able to take advantage of those free things when they pop up. Another thing that I would like to point out, for those of you who are interested and new to the game, is the World of Warships Legends Discord channel. This is something that a lot of people do not know even exists. Okay? I would leave a link to the Discord here in the chat, but it wouldn't do me any good because for whatever reason, when I try to share the link to their Discord, it says that it doesn't work. However, if you go to the WoW's Legends website, which is copy. I'll leave a link in the chat now, and I will pin it. Okay, there you go. WowsLegends.com. Pretty easy. If you go to their website, you can actually find a link to their Discord and other social media outlets right there. I highly recommend you join their Discord channel so that you have access to patch notes as soon as they are released, so that you have access to special things like codes and stuff that they drop from time to time. Their Instagram is another one to follow. Their Twitter is another one to follow. If you're really into this game and you want lots of free stuff, follow those social media. They'll post codes there, and you guys can check that out. I know, these are basic things that most of us already know, but you'd be surprised how many people probably don't know that these social media outlets for World of Warships Legends actually exist. So that's, again, one of the things that we're pointing out immediately for you new people so that you can check out the game. All right? And I'm going to try to do this stream a little bit differently. We're going to try to give out information without being like facetious or anything like that. This is straight up from the bottom of my heart. I'm trying to help you guys. All right? So next thing you'll notice is we have multiple different tabs here, right? We have the Bureau tab. This is where you'll research ridiculously powerful max tier ships and sometimes other special projects that pop up, such as our California project that back in the day. There will be other projects that pop up on occasion here, but for the most part, these will be some of the most powerful ships in the game, max tier, and you have to research them. And it's going to take forever. Do not fall into the, I must get this ship as quickly as possible and spend all the money in the world to speed these up, because the amount of money that you will spend to speed this up by about, I think it's 40%. If you spend all the money to speed this up, it's 40%, and you're going to spend about 30,000 gold to do so. So don't do it. All right? Just as a word of advice. It's not worth it. Grind them out the old-fashioned way. You are required to fulfill certain things to make this go faster. And once you get into the higher ranks, you're not going to have a lot of these things. Just like in this particular instance, I don't have these ships unlocked. So I can't speed this project up even further. But that's okay. You don't have to. Some things are going to take time. But patrons are commanders, and commanders have to be specific levels. And the higher you get up in the rankings of the legendary projects, the higher the rankings of the commanders. So do not be like discouraged when you get to the higher tiers and you don't have them. Okay? It's okay. You will still gain research, but you have to log in every single day in order to do so. Now, newer legendary projects have these impassable sections, unless you have specific ships. Like in this particular case, I had to play the Zeton, I believe. Yeah, I think it was the Zeton that I had to play to pass this particular objective. It's a roadblock. It's set there to keep newer players from getting to the highest tier in the game without the experience of knowing how to utilize those ships, thereby destroying legendary tier. Now, it took them a long time to decide to implement this, but they have finally done it. And so for newer Bureau projects, this is a thing, and I'm glad it's here. But you'll see that there's a couple roadblocks on the way there. So keep that in mind. If you are a newer player, the Bureau may actually be, for some of you, impossible to get through until you go down the line that requires you to get past these roadblocks. Keep that in mind. All right, so that's the more advanced stuff out of the way. Let's take a look at the campaigns and missions. What is this? This is all of the things that you can do on a daily or weekly basis to earn in-game items and commander progression items and stuff like that. Now, the campaign is a 5-week, usually, 5-week thing that allows you to usually unlock a ship at the end of it. Okay, when you finish getting the campaign, provided you spend at minimum a 2,500 gold doubloon Admiralty backing. And that is what I always recommend if there is one thing that you decide to spend money on in this game. Admiralty backing. Why? Because you will get everything from Admiralty backing. It may not be as valuable as it used to be, but at the end of the campaign, provided you play enough to progress through this, which really isn't that hard for most of us, if you play enough and you spend the 2,500 gold doubloons, you will unlock all of the milestones and be able to get all of the goodies that come with them. And that includes commander crates. That includes commander progression items such as insignias, such as promotion orders. You will also earn other random crates. Sometimes mission crates and stuff that you get, campaign crates and stuff, have a lot of good stuff in them as well. You will also earn premium time. And if you do this campaign every single 5 weeks, which is 2,500 gold a month, essentially, and I know that's out of reach for some of us, but for others, it's relatively affordable. If you do that, that is your best bang for your buck, because you will always end up with lots of goodies, lots of premium time. As you can see, I have never bought premium time for this game. I know, it's crazy. I still got 137 days left. Because every single time I buy the campaign, I get these crates, and of course the campaigns themselves also give out premium time, but you also get premium time through crates and stuff that you might get and unlock during this. But you also get things like Commander XP and Global XP and, you know, stuff like that. So keep that in mind. And sometimes you even get doubloons. But this is, without a doubt, the best bang for your buck. And I never recommend anybody buy the campaign all the way out day one. Even though that will earn you steel, and steel is very valuable for, you know, one ship in particular. That's about all it's good for at the moment. But I would never recommend somebody buy the campaign day one because it's 27,500 doubloons. So your value for all of the stuff that you're getting goes down dramatically based on your own lack of patience. That's all it is. So be patient. If you have time to grind, which most of us do, if you're playing these games, you probably have time to grind because, let's face it, these games are grinds. 2,500 doubloons every 5 weeks gets you a premium ship, which is always good, right? Generally speaking, premium ships are always good to have because they give you bonuses for like money and stuff like that during the battle. So always a good thing. Plus, you earn a lot of freebies. Well, not freebies. You're paying for them. But you earn a lot of other goodies along the way. So keep that in mind. All right. Now, let's look at the trials, the missions, all of this stuff. Like, these are different levels of things that you can get. You've got different renown assignments that you can compete. You can see the daily endless trials that get you different things. Just by playing, you will earn these usually. Like, you don't have to do anything crazy to get these unlocked. And it's the same thing for the weekly trials. Weekly trials, you might have to actually grind. But again, if you're playing on a daily basis, you're probably going to get these earned pretty easily. Okay? And then, of course, Battle Prowess is another one. You get multiple little challenges that you can complete just by playing the game. They're usually not that difficult. Okay? So keep that in mind. And then, of course, we've got assignments as well. I don't know why I did that. So assignments are usually things that are limited time, that you have to like try to get through specific like means. So if we look at like the Swift Strikes, you can see that we win 3 battles. Or you go for the Silver Sword 2, you got to cause 300,000 hit points of damage to ships. Requirement, you have to be in the new campaign ship, the Awami. Okay, so these are all required to be in the Awami. Okay, so keep an eye on those requirements. Now, the green anchor means that you can complete these in AI, which is kind of nice because it allows you to do things, especially as a newer player, a little bit easier without having to go up against actual players. So keep an eye out for those green anchors. The red anchors means standard mode. That means you're going up against PvP, player versus player. All right? The Path of the Samurai is, again, another special one that's got the entire like server going crazy right now. We got to get 75 incapacitation, destroyed, set on fire, or caused flooding ribbons. You got to be in a Japanese ship at legendary tier in standard mode. Who thought that would be a good idea? But what this has caused is an actual mess at legendary tier where players that don't normally play legendary tier are forced into legendary tier, and they're playing ships like the Shimakaze and the Yami, and they're doing things like spamming HE out of a Yami rather than just shooting their guns and doing damage. And, you know, you can get end caps, you can get destroys with AP of the Yami, but people don't understand. It's much easier to get fires than it is to shoot AP, I guess. Anyway, but you can see the requirements here. Keep an eye on the requirements for these challenges because they do vary depending on what you're doing. Okay? And of course, the trials. You have the daily boost trials. And again, these are things that you're going to be able to do every day that are no problem. I think we already showed these, didn't we? I think we did. No, these are different. So, again, weekly boost trials, premium supplies. So if you guys are trying to get specific items, you can see the rewards for these challenges are at the bottom. You can see what you're required to do. Like, you have to play a premium ship at tier 2 in AI or ranked or AI or standard to get a promotion order. And then it goes up from there. Premium tier 3, premium tier 4, premium tier 5s, premium tier 6, 7, 8, and legendary. So keep all this in mind, all right? This is where you're going to earn a lot of your promotion orders and progression items and stuff like that, okay? Missions and trials, so keep that in mind, okay? Commanders. Commanders is the next thing we're going to talk about. Now, you're going to see that I have a crap ton of commanders. A lot of these commanders are not available to non-pay-to-win players. Like, if you're not paying to play this game, you're going to be stuck with basic level commanders. But that does not mean that your basic level commanders cannot compete against these pay-to-win commanders, all right? There are certain skills that these pay-to-play commanders are just going to be better. They're paid, right? People want to get their money's worth. But a lot of my ships, I still use basic commanders for whether it be the actual commander itself, like William Sims for the American battleships, or Paolo de Revel, a base level commander for the Italians that I use on all my battleships to reduce their main battery reload. So the thing that you want to pay attention to with commanders is looking at the skills. First of all, you can tell whether it's a battleship commander. You can also look in the top right corner of the card. You will see that this is a battleship commander, whereas Norman Scott is a cruiser commander, whereas Arleigh Burke is a destroyer commander, and of course Ernest King is the carrier commander. You can see the little icon top right of the card that kind of gives you an idea of what you can expect out of each one of these commanders. Now, these are not all going to be available to you right out the gate. Those of you who are just starting out might only have the infamous George Dewey. I know, it's crazy. What George Dewey is, as you can see in the top right corner, he is the generic commander. What does this mean? It means he has perks that can suit any ship, but aren't specific to any ship. And for some people, I call this general purpose. And to quote something from the plastics background, the factory background that I come from, general purpose has no purpose. So keep that in mind. The sooner that you can start to unlock specialized commanders like the Norman Scott, like the William Sims, for each nation, the better off you're going to be, because those commanders have skills that specifically boost the ship type that you're trying to play. Okay? Whereas these are a little bit different. So we have torpedo speeds, that'll help a destroyer, but we also have burn it down, which helps you with your HE for your cruisers or battleships. We have look at me now, which drops your detectability, but we also have crisscross, which gives you a little bit faster gun traverse, and before it's too late, which helps you spot torpedoes from farther away. Okay, so you can see that these skills are all over the place. And then you even have one for carriers down here at the bottom. But you can tell that they don't really have anything particular that's going to help out anybody when you're trying to start the game. Okay, so keep that in mind. But the good news about these commanders is they also offer legendary perks, which will be a long ways down the way for you. But if you get into legendary perks, the thing you'll remember is that the general commanders actually have a legendary perk for each class. So you've got your Unstoppable, which is usually used on destroyers. You've got your Will to Rebuild, which is usually used on battleships, though it's not as good as it used to be. And you have Fully Packed, which can be very good on battleships and cruisers. So it's nice that the generic commanders have like base or legendary traits that are good for all three classes, because that's what you're going to start with. And it's up to you over time to get these commanders. Now, one thing I will say, a lot of people may not know, as you progress, you're going to earn Commander XP. You can go into the store, go to the Commander section of the store, and spend some of that Commander XP that you earn to unlock specific commanders if you're in line with doing so. And I'll give you a little caveat for those of you who don't know. When you get a commander fully kitted out, when you get him to level 16 legendary 4, you get him fully kitted out, then you could actually use this as an exploit to get global commendations, which allow you to unlock other commanders and rank them up. Okay? So, say for me, I have William Sims as a level 16 commander, legendary 4, which means he is maxed out. If I want, I can go in here and buy William Sims for 900,000 commander XP, and that's going to, because he's already maxed out, he can't get any more commendations, he can't be ranked up anymore. Instead of giving me a commendation specifically for William Sims, which is what happens when you get duplicate commanders, instead of getting that commendation for William Sims, since he's maxed out, it gives you a global commendation, which can be used on any commander. So this is a little tip for those of you who are newer to the game, who maybe, and some of you who've been around a while, maybe not have known this. And this doesn't cost you a dime. You can unlock Commander XP as you play. All right? So keep that in mind. And you can change the nation here as well. You've got the USA, the Japanese, the UK, the Germans, French, USSR, Italy, Pan-Asia, and Pan-Europe. All here. Okay? All of the base commanders can be bought through this. So keep that in mind. But, again, early on, you're not going to have access to this because you're not going to have the commander XP and stuff like that. But if you're struggling to get the commander that you want, this is how you would go about getting it, specifically. Okay? So that's a little tidbit for those of you who maybe don't know. Now, here are the tech trees. This is where you can plan your assault up the tech tree line, right? So you can go through, go into your ships, and look at all of the ships in the line, all the way up through to tier 8. It doesn't show the legendary tier ships in here, because reasons. You can't unlock them through normal means. You have to go through the Bureau project to get those legendary ships. So that's why it doesn't show that. This is all ships that you can unlock in just generic progression. And one thing I will note, a lot of you may not know, as you can see, you've got the destroyer line up here, you've got the cruiser line. Also, Voktin coming in with the re-up, hold that thought. Voktin coming in with the re-up for 5 months, thank you, my dude. Dark Lord for 1 month, thank you guys. We get some goats in the chat for those guys. Okay. We have destroyer line up here at the top. You can see they actually labeled it, which is kind of nice. Okay, and you can see that the destroyer emblem is a triangle. The cruiser is a single slash. But you can see their line, and you can see that we actually have two lines. Two cruiser lines. After the Omaha, you get to choose whether you want to go Pensacola or Dallas. Okay? Both of these ships are good. The Pensacola is the heavy cruiser line. I wish there was a way to denote that through here, but they haven't done that. So they have the heavy cruiser line up top, which is Pensacola, New Orleans, Baltimore, and Buffalo. And then they have the light cruiser line, which generally means smaller guns, higher fire rates, less armor, that sort of thing. So you have the heavy cruisers, you have the light cruisers. Heavy cruisers have bigger guns, a little bit more armor, less fire rate, that sort of thing. But harder hitting and all of the goodies there. Okay? Then you have the battleships down here. We actually have two separate battleship lines as well for the U.S. But you can go through and you can see that this line ends with the Maine, and you can see that this line ends with the Minnesota. Okay? Now, as you progress, and then we, of course, have the carriers at the bottom, but most of us don't like carriers, let's be honest. But there are several people that do enjoy the carrier playstyle, so I'm not going to judge you. Okay, I'm secretly going to judge you. Just a little bit of side eye. But anyway, battleships are my bread and butter. I love battleships. Love them to death. I can play all the classes except for carriers because I suck at carriers. I can play all the other classes just fine, but I prefer the battleship playstyle. I like the hard-hitting guns. I like being the center of attention, even though it generally ends with you also being shot at by everybody in the map. But I just enjoy that playstyle. It's more exciting. It's more fun, in my opinion. But what I will say is, as you progress through the tiers, each tier is going to be more expensive, as you'd expect. So each tier costs more money, which are in-game currencies you can get. You got silver, you have gold. Silver is used to purchase new ships and stuff along the tech tree. But you also have more experience needing to be earned before you progress as well. Okay, so keep that in mind. One thing that isn't mentioned in this is service cost. What is service cost? Service cost is the cost of taking a ship into battle. At lower tiers, it's basically non-existent. It's so low at lower tiers that you don't even notice it exists. But I promise you it does. And it starts to be very, very apparent by the time you get up into Tier 7. Tier 6 still isn't too bad. Tier 7 and up, the service cost is really, really high. So you have to perform really well in battle to make sure that you're not losing money, because you will. And this service cost, it doesn't matter if you live or die in battle. The service cost is always there. As soon as you press play and you get into a battle, that service cost is coming out. So keep that in mind. Surviving a battle at the end of the day does not give you any advantage in terms of, like, if you're going to lose the battle regardless, you might as well go out swinging. You'll get more XP, you'll get more silver, but you're not going to save yourself money. Okay, so keep that in mind. Like, you're not going to save silver by running away when it's 1v5 and you're losing the match. Just throwing that out there. Now, if you're able to kite and do damage and continue to get damage while you're running away, then by all means do what you got to do. But I'm just saying that if you are just running away for the purpose of living in the battle and you're not doing anything, like you're not doing anybody any favors, you're just wasting everybody's time, which at the end of the day, time is money, and the grind stops when you can't shoot anything. So think about the time that you're wasting yourself and think about the time you're wasting for other people. Just say it. It's a common courtesy. I'm not saying you got to throw yourself away at the end of a battle if it's hopeless. What I am saying is go out swinging. Don't delay the inevitable, right? Anyway, so that's the basics there. Hopefully that opens the eyes of other people, and you can see that there are the different tech trees. You have the Japanese, you got the UK, and each one of these have their own respective branches of carriers, the destroyers, cruisers, battleships. Some nations don't have multiple lines. Some of them only have specific lines for cruisers or for destroyers. But that's just because they haven't added them in yet, so keep that in mind. Some tech trees are more fleshed out than others. Okay? Alright. So now that we've gone over that, let's check out the play button. Let's click the play button. Also, you can look at your service record and your social. This is how you add friends, by the way. If you want to go find people that have sent you friend requests because you've done particularly well in a battle, this is how you do that. The game is cross-play, so I highly recommend you go onto your specific console and make sure that you have cross-play enabled so that you can play against your console as well as the other console. Whether that be you're on PlayStation, you want to play against Xbox, or you're on Xbox, you want to play against PlayStation. Highly recommend that you have cross-play enabled. This leads to shorter search times for battles, as well as it just makes it more fun overall. You get to find people that you wouldn't normally find and make friends with them, because we do have an in-game friend system that allows us to find players. But another thing that you can do is actually click on, like, somebody's, like, in the after action report, you can click on their name and you can add them directly through there. So you can invite to a division, or you can view their social profile, stuff like that. So you can actually add them as friends through that. So keep that in mind. All right. And of course, like I said, if you go to friends, you can go to the requests and find them that way. Okay? And service records. Service records where you find all your stats. I don't recommend people get into stats early on in the game. Just play the game, learn how to play, enjoy the journey, avoid stats at all costs. Now, once you get more experience in the game, maybe stats become a thing that you want to take a look at and start to improve overall. But you have statistics for the AI, the standard mode, which is PvP. Then they have ranked mode, arena mode, and brawl mode. So you have stats on all of these. Okay? And it gives you, it's brand new, but they just brought in the fact that you can get stats on pretty much everything. Okay, so keep that in mind. Like, you've got all the normal stats here that you would want to look at. But if you go to your play, you can see what specific modes are currently going on. Right now, there is no ranked or brawl, but arena mode is up. So you can play some arena. You can play standard, but you have to play a certain number of AI. I forget how many battles it is. I want to say it's like 8 to 10 battles in AI before you get into standard. But you have to level up to a specific point before you can start to play standard. But you will start in AI, and you will start with the Tier 1 ships, right? Tier 1 is always free. For any nation, Tier 1 is always free. So even if at some point you get to a point where you've sold all your ships, which, by the way, is a terrible idea. Don't sell ships. Ever. Grind out what you need to get the ships. Don't sell ships to move up in tier, because you may have to fall back in order to continue to move forward. because especially early on. You're going to run out of money at some point. It's going to be a thing. You're going to want to say, oh, I'm done with this ship. I'm going to sell it to move up to the North Carolina. Say you're done with the Colorado, or not the Colorado. I'm a dum-dum. Say you're done with, like, the Tennessee, which is, I believe, the Tier 5 for this, and you want to move up to North Carolina. Well, North Carolina is a little more expensive, so you might be tempted to sell the Tennessee to get to the North Carolina. Well, then you get to the North Carolina, and you've already wasted all your money to buy it and maybe even outfit it. Now you're playing, and suddenly your ship is not able to be played because you don't have enough money to pay for the service cost. Well, if you've already sold it, and you've sold every other ship prior to that because you've done the same thing along the line, then what's going to happen is you're going to have to buy the Tier 1 and grind all over again. So never sell ships. Ever. Don't do it. Do the grind, and you will be much happier overall. Because when that happens, you'll be like, okay, well, I can just drop down to my Tier 5, earn some money, get back into Tier 6, and go for it again. So, just from one person to another, never sell ships. But AI battles are exactly that. AI is AI. They're not people. They are very, very basic. And from one person to another, AI almost always just drives in a straight line and tries to attack the closest thing to them. So, what you do is you take advantage of that. You know they're going to sail in a straight line. Try to get out around them, get the easy shots into their broadsides, and you will have a good time. Or if you've got torpedoes, torpedo rush them. But keep in mind, if they have torpedoes, they'll torpedo you back. So keep that in mind. You got to be aware. But it's the most basic form of gameplay to teach you how to play at the most basic levels. You can learn what shells do most, or what shells do the most per salvo for you in a particular ship. What is more effective against different ships that you're going to encounter, because you can play at any tier. You can play AI at literally any tier. Currently, we've got it set for, Tier 6, but if you take this off, you can see that we can go all the way back down and play Tier 1 all the way up. So you can play at any tier. You can play any of the ships that you own in AI battles. I highly recommend you do this for those challenges, especially in the Bureau projects. Those challenges that require a win, because it's very difficult to lose an AI battle. Because you got other players on your team as well. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult to lose. And most of the challenges for the Bureau projects, or most of the challenges in particular, allow you to play in AI. So why wouldn't you complete those challenges in AI? Just a thought. Okay? So utilize AI when you can to save your own headache. Okay? Now, standard mode. Standard mode is where you're going to spend most of your time. Let's be honest. It's PvP. This is what I consider the most fun out of all the different game modes. Ranked battles is probably my second most fun, because I do enjoy a good ranked season, especially 1v1 ranked. I know a lot of people think that that's a goofy way to play, but I just prefer the 1v1, like a little bit of fun. All right? Especially when I choose ships that aren't the meta. You know what I mean? I like to go up against the brawling battleships with the torpedoes and stuff, and ships that don't have torpedoes, just to make it a little bit more challenging. But that's just me. But PvP, this is where you're going to spend all your time. This is where you do all your grinding, because you get better rewards for doing your grinding here. If you play an AI, it's going to take you a long time to go through the tech tree. Okay? So dip your toes in the waters. Don't worry if you're not great immediately. It's okay. Here's what I recommend. Start at Tier 1, work your way to Tier 4 on all nations, on all lines. Wait, what? That's a lot of grinding. You're right, it is. But you can get to Tier 4 relatively quickly. It's not that difficult. Okay? Tier 4 is not that big of a deal. You can get to Tier 4 relatively quickly on all the lines, and that'll give you an idea of what you can expect from each of the lines in each of the nations, and what makes those lines unique. And then you can choose what is your personal preferred playstyle to move up from there. I prefer the Americans because of their consistency, but I'm also American, so it makes sense that I started in America, right? Like, it just makes sense. It's where I started. It's where a lot of people will start. Most of the World of Warships Legends player base is American, just as a caveat. So, if you guys want to start in America, you're not going to go wrong. But just note that while there are some incredibly powerful ships in the American line, sometimes there are some more specialized, unique ships in other nations that you're definitely going to want to test out, because they can absolutely be a lot of fun. So, spread out the love. Try other nations, try all the different lines, find your preferred play style, and find the line that actually fits you. There really aren't that many bad ships in the game. There are a couple stinkers out there, usually premiums that they release, and then they're stinkers because they're not up to what you would consider the par for what you're spending money for. But for the most part, most of the ships in the game are not inherently bad. They just require a different play style to play. Okay, so as you move up, you will see that different ships, different lines have different unique things about them that you're going to enjoy more than others. And when you find that play style, you can then check out what line fits your play style the best. Okay, and if you've played up to tier 4 on all the different lines, then you'll probably have a pretty good idea of what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, okay? But then that allows you to get into the tier 5s and start moving up into the higher grind. Like tier 4, you can grind to tier 4 in a day or two. Like it's not hard, all right? Literally tier 5 and up, you start to get into those multi-day grinds or potentially multi-week grinds, depending on how much time you spend in the game. And that's where the game gets really, really rough for those of us who are just starting out. Okay? So keep that in mind. Crispy, thank you for becoming the newest member of the channel. Appreciate you, my dude. Can we get some goats? I'm sure you guys have already done it. But yeah. So now that we've gone over the basics and the little tips that I would have, let's go in. We're going to actually go back to being in an AI battle. And we're going to showcase some of the most basic things that you need to learn. And we're not going to start at tier 1. We're going to just go jump into a tier 7 match in AI so that I can show you guys the difference between armor piercing, HE, and so on. Okay? Now, actually, I lied. We're not going to jump into a tier 7. We're going to jump into a tier 4, the good old-fashioned Omaha. Because this actually allows us to demonstrate all aspects of this early gameplay. Yami coming in with 20 gifted memberships, an absolute bomb. We got to get all the goats in the chat for Yami. Thank you, Yami, so much. Appreciate you, my dude. Also, don't forget, those of you who are just tuning in, make sure you guys check out the stream description. There is a newer channel on the stream description that I think you guys should check out. It is @FreshPotato. Just click on his name and you will be able to see some of his videos. He's got some really good videos, some nice discussions, and I really do like his perspective on things. So just somebody to check out. All right, so what you're looking at right off the bat is your ship, right? You see your ship, you're like, oh my God, there's so much detail in this game, and you can sit here and stare at these ships for a long time. But notice that the timer is about to start. The game is about to be underway. So we need to go over some things. Based on your controller's preset, which, by the way, if you press start, you can go into settings and change your control preset. Okay, I prefer preset 3, even though that's not the preferred place or preset for, you know, the highest tier players in the game. I prefer preset 3 because it allows me to do things like toggle the target lock, I can lock the guns, I can do all the things. So it allows me to do a lot, right? Other things that it allows is that it changes your preset up quite a bit. It allows you to set specifically what you prefer and what your fingers are going to allow. Okay? A and B control your speeds, which would be X and circle, I believe, on PlayStation, with this preset. And then we have high explosive, which allows you to set fires, hence the little fire symbol on it. And if you press X on Xbox, which would I believe be square on PlayStation, you can switch between HE and AP. Now we're shooting at a Nevada here with small guns, so we don't have a lot of penetration. Nevada is a battleship, so it has a lot of armor. We hit him, we do a little bit of damage, but we don't do a whole lot. We're actually, if you notice the little hit markers pop up when you actually shoot them, you get little cards that pop up. You want to pay attention to those. Because if you're shooting armor piercing and you're not getting a lot of damage, which surprisingly here, we're actually doing pretty well with the damage, but Omaha is a pretty nasty little boat. If you're paying attention, you're getting a lot of shatters and ricochets. You're not doing any damage with those shells. So then you might consider switching to HE. And if you use HE, then you want to aim for squishy parts of the ship. But no matter where you hit on the ship, you have a chance of setting fires. It's a small chance, supposedly, but you have a chance of setting fires. I said setting fires, game. Fires. Ah, there. We set a double fire. Look at that. He damage controls. Well, if we've got a broadside cruiser like this and we have the chance, we want to be switching over to using armor piercing, as this will allow us to do critical damage. As you can see, we scored a Citadel on the Montgomery, which allows you to knock out critical components like engines, as well as just do more damage. It allows you to get the maximum damage out of your shells when you score those Citadels. Again, we have another broadside. We're going to use the armor piercing to go straight through. We want to aim for the general knowledge for aiming for Citadels is to hit waterline at the center of the ship. Okay? Notice here, we're going to shoot at this battleship. What do? We got 5 penetrations, of course we do. Shoot at the belt, Spartan. I'm just too good. Alright, there you go. See how we just ricocheted 7 shells? This is not very effective, right? Oh my god, the game's over already. So in those situations, you want to switch over to the HE to try to burn them down. Okay? If you're getting a lot of shatters and ricochets, those shells are not doing any damage. Alright? It's difficult to try to, in the heat of battle, to do these sorts of videos for you guys. That's why I generally do these as videos. I do have some guide videos out there, some basics for you guys to showcase like where the Citadels are and all of that. Now, one other thing that I want to bring up, now that we've got our first match out of the way to showcase the differences, and we didn't actually use the torpedoes in that one. Should have. I didn't think about it. But we should have tried to use the torps, and I would have showed you that. But if we go into the upgrades, we can actually change how the ship behaves. You can change how much hit points you have. You can change sometimes the guns that are on the ship, depending on, or torpedoes. Okay? So that's what all of this is. This is equipment. You can change this to get better accuracy, or better AA, or better gun traverse. Okay? It all fits into your playstyle. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just whatever your playstyle prefers, that's what you go for. Okay? And then this will almost always make your ship better. There are some caveats where you swap torpedoes for something, or you swap an HE round for an SAP round, and so on and so forth, that maybe don't make your game better. But just as a general thought, these will make your ship better. So you want to spend XP to upgrade your ship, and then buy the upgrades over time. Now, I almost always prioritize the hull upgrade as first. You can get gun upgrades and stuff, but hull upgrades are almost always the best thing to start with, because that allows you to go faster, gives you more hit points, which allows you to survive longer, and so on and so forth. So hull upgrades are usually the first thing that I go for, even though you can see that I started with you know, the targeting system, which increases your firing range. So, okay. But each one of these upgrades does a different thing. But you upgrade your ship over time, and that allows you to get to the ultimate goal of upgrading to the next tier. But you also have the loadout, which allows you to equip boosters if you've got them. Which, if you're going through and doing the campaigns, you're probably going to have boosters. If you're unlocking, or if you're getting your free crate every day, then you're going to have some boosters. Now, something to note about the boosters. You can actually upgrade these boosters. If you got a whole bunch of just tier 1 boosters, you can press X to convert those tier 1 boosters into tier 2 boosters. And you can do so in bulk, which is really, really nice. And if you've got a whole bunch of tier 2 boosters, you can press X and bulk convert them into tier 3 boosters. And tier 3 boosters are what you actually want, because they give you the most bang for your buck. But you do lose a lot of boosters to convert. Remember, you don't get a 1-to-1 conversion rate. You lose boosters all the way along the way when you upgrade. But they have boosters for everything from ship XP boosters, commander XP boosters, global XP boosters, credit boosters, and battle boosters. The battle boosters give you advantage in main battery range, maximum movement speed, and cooldown time for your consumables when you get to the top tier boosters. You can also equip your ships with camouflage. And again, if you're getting your daily crates, if you're doing the campaign, then you're going to have camos. I highly recommend that you save your camos for the higher tiers. Save your camos until you get to the higher tiers. Because if you're wasting your camos early on, by the time you get to the higher tiers, unless you're paying a bunch of money for everything every time, then you're not going to have those camos when you need them. To make those permanent camos that we're going to talk about, which is, if we want to make a permanent camo, we can press X and hold it to convert to a permanent camo. It's going to take 12 of these camos to make a permanent camo, and it's only going to be a level 1 permanent camo. And then you use your paint, which you can get by melting down some of your camos. Use that paint to level up the permanent camo. Okay? So keep that in mind. The flags are purely cosmetic. They do nothing other than just show off certain things, like I was an alpha tester, or that I bought a specific thing, or in this case, the Italian Unity flag was just a code that I got through the World of Warships Legends Instagram. Didn't have to buy anything, just went to their Instagram page. It was up there for Italian Unity. We clicked it. We entered the code on wowslegends.com/code-redeemer. And that's how we were able to get these. Which is something I need to tell all the new people. If you get a code for World of Warships Legends, you do not enter the code on your console. You go to wowslegends.com/code-redeemer, and that's where you enter the code to get whatever the code gives you, whether it be a flag, whether it be a booster, whatever. Okay? Whether it be a crate, sometimes it's crates. So keep an eye on those social media outlets. They give you lots of free stuff. They really do. All right? But you can also check out your consumables. Some of the consumables might actually be able to be swapped out for other consumables, so keep an eye out for that. This ship doesn't have that, but there are ships in the game that do have the ability to swap some of these consumables out. Like, for instance, if we go up to any of the battleships should have the ability to. Nope, I lied. Ah, that's right. We're at tier 4. Let's go to tier 7. I'll show you. I'll show you. All right, so let's look at my favorite Iowa class right here. If we go to the loadout, you can see that, here we have a consumable that can be swapped out. If we click on this consumable, you can see that we have the spotter plane available, or we could swap it out for a catapult fighter or the secondary booster. So keep an eye out for consumables that can be swapped out, because usually the default consumable is not the best consumable for your ship. All right. Now, the next thing we want to look at is the specs. You can see how many hit points you have, how much torpedo reduction you have. You can see the gun size, which is actually pretty huge, because as you get further and further into the game, you start to learn about what overmatching is. Now, this is a basic tutorial on overmatching. Okay, so for overmatching, you're going to need a calculator. What do you mean, Spartan? Why would I need a calculator for overmatching? Well, it's pretty simple. Overmatching is the ability to ignore armor angle. Wait, You can ignore armor angle. Yes, in this game, you can actually ignore the angle of the armor, provided your gun caliber is large enough to overmatch the armor that it's interacting with. It will then pass straight through and penetrate regardless of the angle of impact. Okay? So, in this case, we have 406 millimeter guns. Okay? So if we take the 406 and divide by 14.3, that leaves us with 28.39 millimeters of armor. So what does that mean? Well, that means for ships like the Baltimore over here, the Baltimore's armor at the bow is 27 millimeters. This allows the Baltimore, and you can do this conversely as well. Say you know that you have a 27 millimeter bow on the Baltimore, right? 27 millimeter bow on the Baltimore. Well, the Iowa's 406 millimeters can overmatch 28.3 or whatever. Yeah, I think it was 28.3, but 28 millimeters of armor. So the Iowas can shoot straight through the bow of the ship. Doesn't matter what angle you're at. You can try to angle all you want. Now, that being said, there is armor down the sides of the ship that doesn't get overmatched, but it's a very small amount. Okay, so keep that in mind. But if you're looking at the armor of a ship, you want to multiply the armor by 14.3. So in this case, we have 27 millimeters of armor. So you multiply that by 14.3, and that gives you 386.1 millimeters, which means that that is the required caliber of gun that will overmatch your ship. Okay? So anything with guns that are larger than 386.1 millimeters will go straight through. However, anything with 385, or actually in this case 386 or less, will not go straight through your bow. It then checks to see if it's angled. If it's an angled armor piece, then it will likely shatter or ricochet because it will not have the ability to penetrate. Okay? So keep that in mind. That's a more advanced thing to learn, and a lot of people just do not know about this. And this is what gets a lot of people in trouble. And a little tip for newer players, at Tier 4, this is one of my favorite things to point out for everybody. At Tier 4, if you look at the battleships, every one of the battleships can be overmatched by every other battleship at their tier. With one exception, and that is the Russian Peter Veliki. Every other battleship has the same 19 millimeters or just enough to get overmatched by everybody else. Now, one thing I will point out, there are ships that do have a belt, an extended belt, as you can see. That belt cannot be overmatched at the tier. So for these ships, you want to aim a little bit higher. Okay? But you can see that they still have that weaker plating everywhere else. It's just the belt, so just at the waterline. Okay? Now, if we go to the Russian, you can see the Peter Veliki and why it cannot be overmatched at its tier. Notice how it's got none of that? Like, you could potentially overmatch him if you aim and you hit the water and you just happen to get lucky, but that's it. The Peter Veliki has one of the strongest bows in the game for reasons unknown to mankind, but it just does. So, it cannot be overmatched, even, fun fact, even by the Yamato. The Yamato at the legendary tier cannot overmatch the bow of a Peter Veliki. Just a fun little caveat. But notice the belt armor on ships. Okay, belt armor is where you want to be paying attention, especially in battleships, especially in cruisers. Not all ships have good belt armor. Okay, the Peter Veliki has a great belt all the way down, no problem. As long as you angle this ship properly, you're going to be able to shatter and ricochet reliably. Okay? You over-angle, and this is where the Citadel lies. If you get rid of all of these, you can see the Citadel of the ship. And as you can see, it's got a very high Citadel. It's way outside the water. What does this mean? If you get a broadside of this ship and you pull the trigger, you're gonna Citadel it. Even cruisers can Citadel this thing, no problem. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, this isn't the full story. There is other armor at play here. In fact, you can see that it actually has a bit of a turtleback armor scheme where you have armor overlapping the Citadel a little bit. But it really doesn't matter because even like heavy cruisers at this tier, if you get a broadside of this thing, you can absolutely punch through the Citadel, no problem. Okay? So keep that in mind. But this is what we talk about when we talk about the Citadel. This is how you score those gigantic hits. This is how you're getting blacked. If you over-angle, this is what we're talking about. Those Citadel hits, the ones that do full damage, this is what we're talking about. Okay? So keep that in mind. Now, some things that other people don't know. You can shoot at specific parts of the ship to damage them. Everything on this ship can be damaged. All of the casemates, those guns that are there in the hull, they can be destroyed. You've got AA on the ship that can be destroyed. You've got the towers can be damaged. Well, the towers don't really do any good if you damage them, but you can shoot at the superstructure and get extra penetrations when they're bow in and you're not able to normally do a whole lot of damage. Fun fact, if you're shooting at a bow in opponent, you can actually shoot at the guns and try to knock out their guns. This isn't the best way to knock out the guns because where's the thickest part of the armor on a ship? Specifically a battleship. It's the faceplate of the turrets. Believe it or not, it ain't even the belt armor. You can only put so much armor on the belt of a ship because it's too heavy. But the guns are what the ships are built around. So you want to protect those guns at all costs. And what is the part that's most likely to be hit? The thing that's looking at the enemy. The faceplate, right? Your guns are looking directly at the enemy, so that is going to be usually a sloped piece of armor. As you can see, we've got sloped armor on the faceplate, which increases the armor thickness, but it's also extremely thick armor, as you can see. In this particular case, the front plate is 275 millimeters thick. Meaning there's nothing in this game that overmatches it. And with it being angled like that, you're not likely to go through it. So usually when you knock out a turret, it's because you end up hitting the barbette. The barbette is the thing that the turret rotates on and is inside the ship. It holds a lot of shells. It also is connected to the Citadel, believe it or not. If we put the Citadel back up there, you can see that the barbette actually goes down into the Citadel. So in most ships, the Citadel will expand from the frontmost turret to the rearmost turret. Okay? So that is where you want to aim when you're trying to get those Citadel shots. Now, there are some little tricks to getting the Citadel on ships. And for that, I like to point to this. Okay? See how the Citadel sticks up right there? Notice that the front bow armor, well, on the Peter Veliki, it's a bad choice for this because you'll notice that it has a really good belt armor. But on a lot of ships, they don't have a particularly good extended belt. So you can usually, if they over-angle, go through the bow side plating and into the Citadel. Even turtlebacks are susceptible to this. If we put up the turtleback, you can see that the turtleback does not extend around the front and the rear of the Citadel. It's just protecting the sides. So if you go through the bow or the stern side plating and you access the Citadel that way, you can still score Citadels on extremely hard to Citadel things. Like the German battleships, for instance, which are notorious for rushing you and having really, really good armor and not getting Citadel. Now, you'll still penetrate and do full damage without doing, like, the actual full damage. So there's the different types of damage that you're going to get. So most of the damage that you're going to get are overpins. If you're shooting armor piercing, you're going to get a lot of overpins. What does this mean? It means the shell goes straight through the enemy. Passes all the way through without detonating inside the ship. This is the least amount of damage that you're going to get, with the exception of like ricochets or shatters. Okay? So overpins mean that the shell does not explode inside the ship. It just punches a gigantic hole. Okay? So it just punches a hole straight through the ship. Okay. Now, the next type of damage is a full damage hit, which is a citadel. Citadels will do the maximum armor piercing damage, or HE. If you score a citadel with HE, it can be done. It's rare, but it can be done, usually against a light cruiser of some sort from a battleship with high explosive. But it is pretty rare to score citadels with HE, but it does happen. But it will do the maximum amount of damage per shell hit. So in the case of our battleship here, our maximum shell damage for AP is 11,550. So if we were to score a citadel hit, every shell that scores a citadel hit will be 11,550 damage. So if you score multiples, that's how you get those big dev strikes, right? That's how you absolutely annihilate ships, is those citadels. So any chance that you get to go for the citadel is always a good thing. But you also got to remember that, again, a lot of the thickest armor of a ship is at the belt. So any angling whatsoever usually keeps you from being able to overmatch, and therefore you will ricochet and shatter off of the belt. I use this all of the time in duels against people. When I show the belt, I lift the skirt, I do the dreadnought shuffle, I kind of open up the angle a little bit to entice them to shoot at my belt rather than at my superstructure or my front of my ship. Especially if somebody overmatches my bow, and I know they overmatch my bow, I will open up the angle a little bit, give them the thought that they could potentially, get the big hit. They will almost always bite on it, and then you can close that angle relatively easily and deflect or shatter those shells. So little tips that will help you over time, right? That's what we're trying to do here, okay? We're trying to help. Because I like this game a lot. I play it every single day for the most part. And I want everybody to get better. I want to see the community continue to get better. I want to see this game around for another 20 years. I want to see how this game evolves, and I want to see the player base do really, really well. Because when you guys do well, it makes my games more entertaining. So it's a win-win for all of us. As a better player, I want to go up against better competition. It is that simple. I don't like these raffle stomps that end with 9 ships alive on one side and everybody else dead on the other side in 5 minutes. I want to see competitive gameplay. I want to see everybody knowing what they're doing. I want it to be a challenge. If it's not a challenge, it's not fun. So that's what this is all about. We want to teach everybody the basics so that you guys can put this into action. Okay? Now, I know this is a lot of information to take in, and I don't expect everybody to see this stream for the first time and go, I know exactly what this guy's talking about. But the good news is it ain't going anywhere, folks. It's still going to be here. I have an entire playlist dedicated to guide videos just like this, where you can go in and check it out and you can learn all of the basics. There are some that are very old. Some of the very old ones are still relevant, so you can still check those out. But this gives us a newer, more up-to-date version so that people can check it out. So the last thing we want to check out is the overview. This overview is just a generic overview. It doesn't tell you anything that you don't already know if you've looked at the statistics. It will say things like superior AP penetration. So it has above average AP shell penetration. Now, the game does not tell us anything about how much penetration or what the shell velocities of particular ships are. I wish they would add that into the game, because the more knowledge you have about your ships, the better you are going to be able to do, right? And that's why I tell everybody to play all of the nations, play all of the lines, so that you know what you're up against as well as what you are in. Knowledge is power, folks. Even a gigantic potato like me I put in a lot of effort to learn each and every ship that I come across, because knowing things like whether or not I can overmatch their bow, whether or not I need to go for weak spots such as the superstructure, which, by the way, I don't think I ever actually showed the superstructure. The superstructure is this part of the ship, the little light blue area. It is the weakest armor on the ship, but it usually has quite a few hit points allocated to it, which can lead to some cheesy moments of getting some nasty hits on people in a pinch if you have nothing else to shoot. Say you've got armor piercing loaded and you're like, okay, well, this guy's angled really well. I can't really do a whole lot of damage here. So I aim high, go for superstructure and potentially a gun, because as you can see, the barbettes do stick out above the deck a little bit. You're not going through the turret faceplate to knock out a turret. You're going through the barbette to knock out the turret. And that's what we were talking about right before we went to the Citadel discussion. But yeah, the barbettes are the weak point of the turrets. So go for the barbettes and you will be a lot more useful in terms of knocking out the guns. Okay? But again, shooting at superstructure is good in a pinch. I use it all the time to knock out big chunks off of battleships that are very well angled. It can also be very good against ships like super cruisers and stuff that have a 32mm bow that you don't overmatch. So then you can go for the superstructure hit and do really, really good damage. Now, the one thing to remember is it is lightly armored, so you're likely to overpin. Now, as a battleship, overpins still hurt, okay? Your overpin on an Iowa-class battleship is going to score 1,441 damage. I know that's a very specific number, but trust me, I've played the Iowa a lot. I know exactly what an overpin does. So 1,441 damage. Okay, let's take a look at our Iowa class real quick again. This is the one ship that I know the most about, so that's why I'm constantly talking about it. If we look at our specs for our guns, you can see that we have 14,410 damage for maximum damage of our AP shells. If we score a Citadel hit, it's 14,410. Now, what is the thing that you notice about the first four numbers of that AP shell number? It's 1441, right? What did I just say that the overpin damage was on an Iowa-class battleship? It's 1441. Why is that important to know? Because every ship that you come into, you're going to notice that the overpin damage is 10% of the maximum shell damage. So for the Kansas in particular, it's got a lighter weight shell, so it's got a maximum AP shell damage of 13,640. So that means overpins for this particular ship are going to do 1,364 damage. It is exactly 10% of the shell total damage. So again, something that a lot of players don't know, but come in handy. Why does this come in handy? Well, let's say in a pinch, you've got armor piercing loaded, right? You've got armor piercing loaded because you're a good battleship player and you always have armor piercing loaded in most situations. I know I said I was going to do this without being facetious, but trust me, that was a joke. I know there are plenty of situations out there where you want to have HE loaded, but I'm just saying, in most situations in a battleship, you're going to have AP loaded. Say you get rushed by a destroyer. All right. Well, we know that the Kansas fires 12, if you get a full broadside, 12 rounds, and you're probably going to overpin the destroyer because it's a lightly armored ship. It's very small. You're likely to overpin it. So if we do the math, we can say that at maximum, our ship is going to do 1364 times 12. If we hit all 12 shots, that's 16,368 damage. Why is that important? Well, let's take a look at your destroyers. Let's pull up the destroyer. I'm going to pull up the Kagero or the Udachi because they're usually the lighter, the lower health of the destroyers, because they are the sneakiest. So let's look up the Kagero, and how many hit points does the Kagero actually have? 13,590. So there is a very real chance that if you hit all 12 shells and get overpins, that you can death strike from full health a Kagero with armor piercing. Now, that is under the best case scenario. That is, you have your guns in perfect place to fire a full salvo at a destroyer that's rushing you and you hit all 12 shells. you're not likely to hit all 12 shells because we have dispersion and RNG in the game. Now, when we talk about dispersion and grouping, those are two separate things. And this is where we're going to go back to our battleships real quick. Now, again, the game does not do a lot to tell you anything about dispersion or grouping. So that's why these videos are important. Notice there is nothing here that tells you anything about dispersion or grouping. It doesn't tell you what the sigma value is of a ship or anything. So that is why you want to do things like in your commander build, come over here and you'll notice that as a battleship commander, most of the time I'm trying to get the most consistency out of my ship. The way you do that, because battleships have the worst accuracy in the game, the way you do that is by adding things that increase your firing range, first of all, so that you can be a little bit further away, still hit targets. But you'll notice that there is shell grouping and there is shell dispersion. Right here, main battery dispersion. What is the difference between dispersion and grouping? Grouping is how closely your shells will stay together. Okay? Which means, while you may not be any more accurate, when the shells do hit the ship, you're more likely to hit multiple shells rather than a single shell. Because your shells generally tend to spread out the further away something is. There are some caveats to that. It's not an always, thing, but for the most part, your shells will spread out with range. Okay? It's like a shotgun. If you shoot a shotgun from point blank, it's a really tight grouping. You shoot a shotgun from further away, the grouping gets bigger, right? The shells spread out. The grouping allows those shells to stay together longer, so it keeps them closer together. Dispersion, you can picture a giant oval around a ship. Okay? The dispersion value is what allows that oval to shrink. Why do you want the oval to shrink? Well, when the oval shrinks, that means you have a higher probability of landing shells on the target that you're shooting at. And when you buff both the dispersion and the grouping, you're getting the most amount of shells to hit the target as possible. So that is the basics of dispersion and grouping. And that is the difference between the two. So when you see grouping, you're like, okay, that means my shells are more likely to stay closer together. Now, certain ships like the French battleships have really bad grouping. They tend to spread out a lot. But they have generally overall good accuracy, meaning you tend to hit the ships more often. So what you want to do on some ships is to buff the grouping more than the dispersion. And that is where your inspirations come in handy. Now, we're using some pay-to-win commanders here, or pay-to-play commanders, like Azure Lane Scharnhorst, which buffs our main battery dispersion, which makes that overall oval smaller, allowing us to hit more targets. But you have base commanders, such as the British Cunningham. I need to go back over towards Cunningham here. There we go. Andrew Cunningham is a battleship commander who allows you to use his base trait to buff your main battery shell grouping on battleships. So this is the part of commanders that gets people all flustered. Pay attention to the actual skills of the main commanders, all of the commanders that you have, because you can use them to buff your commanders for each line. So William Sims is my U.S. commander, but I've got Azure Lane Scharnhorst and Paolo de Revel, which is an Italian and German commander that allows us to buff our battleships as much as possible for my particular playstyle. So that's what you want to pay attention to. And you can see their base traits right here. So base trait is what gets used when you use these as an inspiration. You can use any commander in the game as an inspiration for another commander. But pay attention, because some of those commanders' base traits are specific to battleships or cruisers or destroyers or carriers, and some of them are generic, like William Sims, for instance. It just says hit points per ship tier. You get a base 400, since we're fully kitted out, 400 hit points per ship tier. So the higher the tier, the bigger the bonus, right? So that is what this is about. But this is generic. It doesn't say just for battleships. You can use this particular base trait on any class in the game. Whereas Azure Lane Scharnhorst, actually, Azure Lane Scharnhorst is also a generic. But Palo de Revel is specific to battleships. Battleship main battery reload time. Now, there are buffs that you can use that are generic, and there are buffs that you can use that are specific. And almost every situation, the specific buff is actually going to be more than the generic buff. Because the generic buff is usually tied to more than just one thing. You will usually have a generic buff that has one or two different things, and they're just a smaller buff for each of those things. So keep that in mind. Okay? Now, again, I know this is a lot of information to learn, but that's why this is here. You guys can come back to this stream or this video at any point, and you can remember what I'm talking about in these situations. And now, with all of that being said, we've gone over all of the basics. We've done all the things. Let's get into some basic combat, right? We're gonna be I lied. Let's get out of AI because we're gonna go PvP. We're gonna start at tier 4. Actually, let's go tier 3. We'll start at tier 3 for the Americans because that's my favorite. And we will work our way up the tech tree. We're gonna just focus on the tech tree. I'm gonna go from 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We're not gonna get into tier 8 because we don't need to, because 7 and up pretty much all very similar. But you'll see how the games evolve, how they start to change over time. So we're going to start with the Wyoming. We're going to go up Wyoming, New York, New Mexico, Colorado, and end with the Iowa. And I'm going to try to showcase the ships and showcase the gameplay styles that change throughout. Okay? Now, early on, you can afford to be pretty aggressive. Let's see. I know I missed some things. Schmidt coming in, re-upping his membership for 17 months. Thank you so much. Boogeyman becoming the newest member on the channel. And 4718 Dan re-upping his membership for 3 months. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you guys. Can we make sure that you guys get some goats in the chat for the folks? Appreciate you guys. But we're going to start at tier 3, work our way up through tier 7 so that I can showcase just how much the battles change. Okay? So at tier 3, you can get away with being pretty aggressive. Okay? Most people tend to be really reckless at tier 3 because they just don't know any better. One thing that I want you guys to remember is to use armor piercing. If you're playing a battleship, 95% of the time you should shoot AP. With the exception of a couple of the British battleships at higher tiers, you should be shooting AP most of the time out of your battleships, because AP is going to almost always be effective depending on what you're shooting at. It can literally do it all. One thing I want you guys to start to learn as quickly as possible is to not always go for full broadside salvos. Sometimes you want to stay angled to the enemy, because when you open up, we've already talked about, you expose that citadel. And when you do that, you're begging to get hit and sent back to port. Do not argue with RNG. RNG is the great balancing factor of this game. Okay? RNG stands for Random Number Generator. And it is what decides who lives and who dies at the end of the day. You can place the shot, do everything perfectly, have RNG just laugh at your face, and then get depth struck from the most goofy salvo you've ever seen in your life. So, trust me, sacrifice your baby carrots every single day to the RNG gods. Here we take a shot, full broadside at a cruiser. He turns away. Look at him already do it. Oh, I know who that is. That's why he's turning away. We already have people trying to get in my game. Really? Anyway.
The ship is on fire.
This is why we don't do these things live. But here we have a good look. Oh, he's back. We have a good look at the broadside of a battleship. Pay attention to those crossfires, guys. I'm going to go ahead and put this fire out because we're about to go behind an island and we should be okay. You can see we got the good crossfire hit. We got 7,800 damage on that Dante Alchieri out there. It is not usually a good idea to damage con a single fire because damage controls last a long time on cooldown. As you can see, a minute and 20 seconds before the next damage control comes up. If I take a flood or a fire at this point, then that will last a very, very long time. And usually, especially in the case of floods, ends in your swift removal from the match. Now, of course, the one person that is in the game that is watching from my stream is going out of his way to come after me, so we're going to try to make sure he pays for it. We have a Clemson here pushing up on us. It is a destroyer, so he is automatically a scary thing to have at this range. But he just got rid of our battleship buddy, and we don't have guns to shoot him because we just shot at the Awaki. So here, we're going to turn away. We've already lost 3 ships. Cruiser goes full broadside. We take the shot. We get all over pins and 1 full penetration. We're going to go ahead and use our first heal to gain back some of those hit points. This brings me to my next thing. When you're looking at a ship and you see that health bar, notice how it's got the little sections of the health bar. Each one of those sections is 5,000 damage. So this is how you can look at a ship and tell quickly how much health it has left. Like this Duguay. This Duguay has 3 full bars, so that's 15,000 hit points, plus a little bit of another one. So maybe half of another one. So we can assume he's got about 17 or maybe 18,000 hit points left. Here we have the Awaki, again, parked full broadside, begging for it. But, again, it's a very lightly armored cruiser, so even if we do get a good hit into the Citadel... Oh, never mind. There, we got the Citadel hit. It actually worked. I'm more surprised than he is, probably, that actually worked. But the Duguay is trying to set us up. He's got torpedoes. He wants to use them. He's being harassed by the carrier. He's actually not paying attention to us. So we're going to take a shot there. We're trying to go through the bow side plating here, but we might just go ahead and aim a little bit further back and try to go for the Citadel directly. Again, it's not likely, because it's French, it's not likely to be Citadel. It's got very light armor. It's got spaced armor, so they have funky Citadels to hit from battleships. We generally get overpins on them. But he's not long for this world either way.
The enemy is about to win.
Now, we are falling back. We've got the enemy Clemson right here, the destroyer. We want to wait till we get a full salvo. And again, I've got AP loaded, so we want to just go ahead and try to get as many hits on him as possible. And one thing I will say is learn to shoot destroyers, battleships, for reals. It will save your... Oh, my Lanta. There's the RNG. But it will save your bacon. When a destroyer is spotted, you should go out of your way to shoot him. And as you can see, that guy's going to die now. Getting rid of destroyers is massive because they are some of the most powerful ships in the game because of their ability to sneak around and their speed. This guy's turning towards us, so we aim a little bit lower than normal, and we get a good hit. We're going to take another shot as he goes forward, and we leave him alive. We do have another heal ready, so we're going to go ahead and use that. We can recover a little over 5,000 hit points here. Bogatir is going to go hiding behind the island. So we've got a Corbeil here opening the angle up. We're going to go for him. Our friendly Orion was able to take out the cruiser. You can see we land a solid hit on Corbeil. We're going to angle because we saw him shoot at us. We don't want to stay over-angled. We have taken him down to very low health, so our teammates should be able to take him out if we can. We need to start moving into the caps. That is the one thing that we haven't done in this match. We've been focusing on showing damage and all of that, but we haven't really done anything cap-wise. Here we catch him before he gets behind the island, hoping to finish him off. We weren't. We weren't able to finish him off. We are moving forward. We're going to try to get into a position where we can fire at the guys across the map. Corbeil should be able to be taken out by our Orion, no problem. Orion is actually moving into the cap, I would hope.
All forces, capture that area.
Keep an eye on the timers at the top of the map. Keep an eye on the points. The enemy has the points lead right now, but the enemy is also just getting in bad positions and getting outplayed here. So We get another good hit on the Kuma. The Orion is able to finish off the Corvette. We're able to negate most of the damage from the Alahiri. Got a couple of small penetrations. I think this guy is actually going to get away. He's hiding behind the island pretty well. Just trying to sneak a shell through. We're not able to get into the cap just yet. We're so slow. That's the one downside of American Dreadnoughts, is that we're very, very slow. Very good guns, very, very slow. Kuma has made mistakes. He's likely to back up. Watch the smoke change from where he was going forward to now going in reverse. You can keep an eye on that, and you can make sure that you shoot in the proper location. And of course, you always score the Citadel at the last possible hit, right? Always. It's like a guarantee. We call it the Pitadel. Like, you can shoot a ship 1,000,000 times, and on the last shot, that's the one where you Citadel him. Now, we actually are in a position where we got a battleship on our right and our left here, so we're going to have to be careful. We don't want to over-angle.
Problem solved.
We've got the Dante over here on our left. We're going to actually swing all the way out and get a full broadside as he opens up the angle. There's our high caliber. We're also going to turn to get shots on the enemy battleship to our right. This might be a bad decision here, but I think I can actually finish this Dante off. Oh no, he got to the island just in time. That was a fail. Basically, the plan for me here is to go for the ram on this Wyoming and then get the shots into the Dante. So we got to be ready to angle against the Dante. We've got our guns ready. They're about to be loaded. He's about to come around the corner, full broadside. And we did not get the Citadel, and we might die here. That was like worst case scenario. That was literally worst case scenario. That was RNG at its finest, but it's unfortunate. We did our job. We did as much as we could, but we just weren't able to pull it back. We went for the home run, and we didn't get it. Like, we know that we shouldn't be broadside, but we were trying to go for the home run as this guy came around the island. We knew he was going to get a shot at us as well. And unfortunately, RNG just said no. Orion was going after the battleship, so if we were able to get the broadside off into the Dante and then ram this guy, there was a chance that we win that way, because we weren't going to win on points. The enemy had all the caps. So we were not going to win on points. We had to win by killing them, which is something that you got to pay attention to as well. But you'll see that game went better than most higher tier games in terms of just the way they played in general sense. Now, the one thing I will say is our battleship shouldn't have chased that guy all the way out there. He should have kept the guy spotted and then stayed just far enough away that he could hit him, but not have to worry about like being too far away to help with other ships at the end of the match. But doesn't matter. The game's over. It is what it is. You win some, you lose some. But we're trying to break down everything in terms of like each battle so that you guys can see kind of what you can expect gameplay to look like at the different tiers. So that one was pretty aggressive. Everybody kind of charged in. You catch a lot of broadsides because people just don't know better. Despite the fact that there were some players that were in my stream that actually are better players playing at lower tiers just to end up on stream. Despite that being a thing, you still got to see a lot of the normal low tier gameplay where everybody's just sailing around, balls to the walls, full broadside, like trying to get as many guns on target as possible, don't know how to angle properly, that sort of thing. Oh, look who's in our game again. Who could have seen that coming? Funny how that works. Anyway, again, it's another lower tier game. We spawn middle of the map. It is another domination game. So we're going to try to do a better job this time of controlling caps, because that is the one thing that we didn't do in the last one. But we're also going to showcase a bit of the Dreadnought Shuffle in this one. We're in the New York. New York has a powerful broadside. It's decently accurate. Doesn't have the best armor in the world, but it has enough of armor to get rid of a lot of the shells. Plus, remember what we said about Tier 4 battleships. Tier 4 battleships all overmatch each other with the exception of Peter Veliki. So when we shoot at another battleship, I'll demonstrate the overmatch ability if I can. Now here, we've got a Congo pushing in. Like, we don't need to overmatch him because he's over-angled. We've got a good, what we call a crossfire, which is what I always try to teach people to look for. Try to get those crossfires whenever you can. Sometimes it works out in your favor and you get the big hits. Sometimes it works out in your teammates' favor and they get the big hits. But what a crossfire does is it forces the enemy to turn one way or the other. And you can see this situation. The Congo's actually bow tanking us. But again, we know that we overmatch. Of course, from this range, us actually hitting his bow and demonstrating the overmatch is going to be difficult to do. But we land a few shells, and those were plunging fire through the deck. It wasn't actually an overmatch. You can see that the Dougie is coming after us. The carrier is also coming after us. So what we want to do is see which direction the carrier is coming from and turn into them, since it is going to be torpedoes. That minimizes our profile. He actually went for the other guy. So this is going to allow us to get a full salvo away at this Dougie, who is over-angling. We want to go through the cheek armor of the Dougie here, rather than go for the Citadel directly. We didn't get the Citadel. We overmatched. 8 overmatches on him, which is to be expected. It's a French cruiser. This is actually a French cruiser that's shooting AP, which is actually pretty funny. And again, I went broadside so he could actually punch us. Congo's pushing towards us. Now we could potentially showcase that overmatch ability that I was talking about. Remember, well, I say that, and he's about to over-angle and go broadside, so we're just going to take the shot. Down he goes. And we got the Citadel through the cheek armor. So now we want to go forward, get ready to go into the cap. Try to take that. The enemy already has the A cap. So the next thing we want to look at is who's in range. You can look at the mini-map, pay attention to the mini-map, see where everybody's at, and then see who is in your range. The white circle is your firing range. Anybody that's inside that white circle, you can hit. If they're on the outside of the white circle, like the Orion is right now, you can't actually hit them. You can see our range is only 16.81 kilometers. And he's just outside of that, and he's turning away. But if we move into the cap, the destroyer's grabbing the Charlie cap, so we're going to be okay there. And then we've got an enemy battleship on our right that's just outside our range. We have the Dougie straight ahead, hiding behind an island, so we can't actually shoot him. But the enemy Wyoming is actually coming out, and he's mostly over-angled. Also, he's lower tier, so we're going to be able to overmatch that as well. So we're going to go ahead and shoot towards the front of the ship. He actually stopped. Didn't see that coming. But we're going to get into the cap, start swapping this cap over, and then we're going to take a broadside at this guy. We haven't had a chance to really showcase the Dreadnought Shuffle too much. What I call the Dreadnought Shuffle is just using your armor. So you wait for the enemy to shoot at you, you're bow in for the most part, and then you swing out to get as many guns as you can on target, and then you turn back before their shells get to you. Now, this guy's shooting HE at us, so us turning back's not really going to do anything other than avoid. But we did get a Citadel on that Wyoming, teaching him he shouldn't go broadside. We've got a Murmansk on our left. We're going to start to turn out for that. Now, if this Wyoming loads AP, he could actually slap us here, but he's already demonstrated that he's going to shoot HE. So we're going to go broadside to him and prepare to shoot at this cruiser. Because the cruiser's going to keep resetting us in this cap. Now we have our shot. He actually loaded AP. I'm assuming this guy actually knows what he's doing, but he got unlucky, so did we. We only landed 3 shells on target. One of them ricocheted. But since this guy has demonstrated that he's willing to use armor piercing, we're going to start to angle away from him. And that's going to allow us to get a decent armor angle on the Wyoming. We also are going to dodge... nope. Turn in. There we go. We dodged the torpedoes. We got pretty lucky there, to be honest. This could hurt. Yeah, there's the double fire. We're going to aim a little bit higher here in hopes to get more targets, or more shells on target as he turns away. And we just got unlucky. Hopefully they can finish off this Murmansk. I know there's a destroyer. Oh, dear God.
Problem solved, sir.
Okay, destroyer's right here. So we want to make sure that we're taking evasive action immediately because we're assuming he's already launched his torpedoes. Only one reason a destroyer would come out full broadside. We got unfortunately double fired. Take the shot. Turn harder. Yeah, we're gonna die. Oh, we didn't take the flood though. We didn't take the flood. That's actually huge, but I think we're still dead here to the double fire because of that Murmansk. If we can survive long enough to get a heal, that would be huge, but I don't think we're going to. We got 10 seconds. We might be able to get one more big hit onto the... Nope, I think we're going to die right before we get loaded. That's unfortunate. 3 seconds away from getting loaded. There wasn't much we could do about that. Again, we were being focused pretty hard in that one. This cruiser could have done a little bit more to counter that cruiser. But, again, you can only do so much. You can only control what you can control. Your teammates, you're never going to get them to do what you want them to do most of the time. So, just control what you can control. We went into the cap. We did the right thing. We were forced out of the cap. We dodged the torpedoes, all except one. We didn't get a flood, which was huge. We just got, unfortunately, double fired before the guy died. Now we watch K.L. Henley versus a broadside Congo, and he's asking for help when he should be able to just absolutely annihilate this guy. You can see he's getting some good hits there, but we did hit the destroyer for most of his health, so there's at least that. If our aircraft carrier knew what he was doing, he could actually counter the destroyer pretty hard. Good dodge. Another good shot. Rear turrets. Center of mass. There's the Citadel, and he finishes him with the front guns, I'm guessing. Yep. Another Citadel. So he gets the dev strike on that. Good shot. So this is looking like a win. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next... Oh my God. Stung coming in, dropping a 20 gifted membership on us as well. Thank you so much, Stung. Appreciate you, my dude. Get some goats in the chat for Get Stung, please. Y'all are going crazy with the memberships, man. Appreciate you. All right, so we've done the Wyoming, we've done the New York. We're going to move up to the New Mexico next. And hopefully this will keep some of the people that are trying to get into our games out of our games for the moment, since they're still in the last game. And again, I'm not trying to showcase, we still didn't get a chance to do the Dreadnought Shuffle, really. We haven't had a good old-fashioned battleship duel where I have to showcase the Dreadnought Shuffle. We haven't had that. Every game we've played, everybody's been very hands-off, which is odd for these lower tiers. We'll see if we can't do better here. When I start the match, the first thing that I do is I look and see what is in a match. First thing you're going to notice is that we are bottom tier. We're in a tier 5 ship. This is a tier 6 battle. So we need to pay attention and look out for the Prince Heinrich, because he's going to usually have the ability to overmatch us, right? The Miyoko is another tier 6, and their destroyers are both tier 6s as well. So we have to keep that in mind when we get into this fight. Now the next thing I do, I spawn middle again. Rather than just going straight into the cap, which is generally not a good idea for a battleship because you are so visible, just like we showcased in the last one, you're going to be focused from pretty much everybody on the map if you do that. I try to support the weaker side. In this case, we have a battleship to our left, and we have 2 battleships and a destroyer on the far left flank. We have a battleship to our right and a couple of cruisers on our right. So if I go to the right, I can supplement or, you know, just add a little bit more firepower to that side, which is the weaker side. They don't have the spotting. They don't have the overall firepower advantage for their side in most situations. So I'm going to try to support that side. I like to win a flank. That's my goal. If I spawn on a flank, I always say hold your side, or at least try to win your side. If you can do that, that allows you to set up those crossfires we were just talking about as well. So we got the Miyoko and the Dallas heading this direction, which is actually pretty good for us. But generally speaking, this game is a game of rock, paper, scissors. Cruisers counter destroyers, destroyers counter battleships, battleships counter cruisers, and carriers counter everything. That's how this game is generally set up. That's how it works. Okay, we don't have a carrier to worry about in this match, so it is going to be a pretty standard game, and you can see our Rahmat has challenged or charged too far ahead. He's overextended into the cap. He's getting focused by everybody that's over here. And like I said, we have 2 cruisers on this side of the map. The Dallas is a light cruiser. The Miyoko is a heavy cruiser. So here we're going to take a shot. We've got a potential look at this Dallas. He's slowing down. He's turning in. We're going to try to catch him. Should be able to finish him. That was a pretty good salvo of HE, but this should finish him. Or just get overpins. That always works. That always works. Notice the notice the mini-map. We have 3 battleships heading our way as well, potentially. There are 2 destroyers, and there are 2 bases that have already been capped. So that tells me both of the destroyers are at Bravo and Alpha currently. So we may have to watch out for the Bravo capped destroyer. Get a shot out at the Dallas right as he goes dark. Hopefully we can finish him off. Nope, just 2 more overpins. Not allowed to finish him. Despite him going really slow and begging for it. Being low health. But we're going to continue to try to push forward, see if we can't put ourselves in position to counter these cruisers as they push into the Charlie cap. We should be able to spot this guy. He's definitely going to be able to spot us, but he's opening fire on our cruiser and doesn't get spotted, probably because of the smoke screen. I'm spotted. Waiting to see him. Also keeping an eye out for those battleships that are backlining. Miyoko comes out. He's over-angled. We're going to aim high, expecting him to turn out, potentially. And he maintains course. Never mind. Nope, that's less than ideal. Dallas is still begging to die. The enemy has all the caps, which is not ideal. And we just took a nasty hit from those battleships I was talking about that are coming this direction. No idea what my teammates are doing. They finished off the Dallas, though, so that's big. Keep an eye out for the cruiser. The cruiser's slow, so we don't want to aim as much. And this should be a kill. There we go.
The ship is on fire.
Go ahead and put out the fires since the things that were setting the fires are now dead.
Sunk.
And try to get forward into that cap because we got to get these points like immediately. I need our cruiser to go forward into the cap too. He can use the islands to cover himself, but I need him to start getting towards the cap.
Problem solved.
But we're gonna push forward. We got 3 battleships here that we've got to keep an eye out for. We know one of them is a Tennessee. And there's the Tennessee. We do not overmatch, so we're gonna aim high and then turn in. This is what we call the battleship shuffle. So we turn in after firing our broadside, and we're able to limit the amount of damage we receive. Now we gotta watch. There's a second Tennessee right behind him. This is a division. This is 2 Tennessee divisions, so we knew that they were going to be together. He actually gets some pretty good chunks into the... We gotta watch out for that guy in the back too. That Warspite actually does overmatch and can be a problem.
All stations.
We're going to aim high on the Warspite just to keep him honest. These guys have set up a pretty good crossfire, and unfortunately my teammate isn't in a crossfire position. He's kind of following us. But we want to start to slow down here. Go ahead and use that. You can see we bait, instead of showing him going straight bow into him, we bait him into shooting our belt, and he's able to ricochet off the belt. Tennessee is going to angle, so we're going to aim high on him, go for that superstructure like we were talking about. Don't quite have the gun to shoot the Warspite with the rear. Hoping that he continues to go for the big hit and shoots at my belt. It looks like he's shooting at the bow here. Yeah, he's going to get some pins there. Okay, now the Tennessee is over angled. He's going for me because I'm the low health ship. We're going to use our spotter plane, go through and hopefully finish off this Tennessee. Of course not. What was I kidding? Warspite just shot HE at this Heinrich, which is odd. But it's actually probably to get rid of torpedo tubes. So while he's fighting him, I'm going to try to get the attention of this Tennessee.
Spotter returning to ship.
We're going to try to get ourselves into the cap. Torpedoes are out from our battle cruiser. He's got this guy slowed down and over angled, so we're going to take a shot. And he absolutely shoots us. That's not surprising, but we should be able to finish him off here if he doesn't kill us first with the secondary. There we go. And in 2 seconds we get a heal,
Enemy battleship.
and that should keep us alive for a little bit longer. We still have our Prince Heinrich. Our cruiser is still way out on the edge. Never did get into the cap. But at least we've got one of the caps flipped on the other side of the map, and we are starting to flip this cap. So we're going to aim high with the front guns. Go for that superstructure hit again, because he is angled. You can see we can get some pretty reliable damage there. We want to turn back in. Try to shatter and ricochet here. Oh my god, he's still pinned. He hit my superstructure.
Critically damaged.
He hit my superstructure. Not ideal. Yeah, we're probably going to die here. He's going to swing out, get his front guns involved. Probably finish us, would be my guess.
Good show. Problem solved, sir.
Turning out. Aim high, so superstructure. One last shot before we go down. Didn't end up getting much out of that. We could have switched to HE there on those guys that were doing a pretty good job of angling, but we didn't need to. I don't mind taking the hits for my team. I really don't. Like, as long as our team is taking advantage of it. Like, the Heinrich used us as a meat shield so that he could go forward, get his torpedoes off, and we were able to get rid of, what, 3 battleships, 2 cruisers on our side? That's 3 versus 5, and we came out on top with losing only a single ship. So that's the difference in a side. If I hadn't gone to that side and soaked up all that damage for the team, we wouldn't have won that side, most likely. So just little things like that to keep in mind. Wasn't the highest damage game in the world, though it was still better than an average game. Top of the leaderboard XP-wise. All right, now we're going to move forward to the Colorado. And now you're starting to see a lot more players actually doing things like switching ammo types, angling, knowing where to shoot on a ship. So you're seeing a lot more of that rather than at the low tiers where everything is just kind of chaos. It allows you to learn at lower tiers. And then as you get into the higher tiers, the games do actually evolve and you start to see people switching ammo types. You start to see people angling their ships. You start to see people going for your superstructure or your bow side plating or overmatching. So you've got to pay attention as you get into the higher tiers to those sorts of situations. Now, in a Colorado at tier 6, first thing we want to look at, we are top tier. There are 4 destroyers, so we are in a game that we are highly overmatched by ships that we are not going to be able to see until it's too late. But we also know that we overmatch everything in this lobby. Nothing in this lobby cannot be overmatched by our 16-inch guns. So we have an advantage. but we are also at an intrinsic disadvantage due to the fact that half the ships in the lobby against us are tiny ships who will not get spotted until it's too late. So keep an eye open for those ships when they do get spotted. Take shots at them when you can, and then try to play according to where their position last known is or was. But welcome to the stream, everybody. For those of you just joining us, we're doing something a little bit different. We're doing more of a teaching stream today. It's not as much of a normal stream. We're just kind of teaching. So I do apologize if I'm not interacting with chat as much as you would like, those sorts of things. But first, right off the bat, we've got a cruiser here who's bow in. We're going to pay attention to what he ends up doing. He's actually got a smoke screen, which is something you don't see very often. But we got a Jervis here on the left. So, like I said, pay attention. Take shots at them when you can, because you got to try to take their hit points when you can. First shot out. Good shot. Took a good chunk of his health. Not quite half, but a good chunk. That's going to limit his effectiveness, hopefully, for the rest of the match. Maybe get rid of him real quick. We do have Emerald here that should be able to hard counter these guys, if he lives long enough to do it. There should be a kill. Never mind, he's faster than I gave him credit for. Paying attention to the torpedoes. Our destroyer's doing a good job of shooting at him. Our cruisers have shot at him. We got more torpedoes on the way. Okay, he goes down. We should be able to outrun these torps, so I'm not too worried there. I don't think they were meant for us to begin with. York is going around the backside of the island. We still have one more destroyer right off our bow that we're waiting to see. But we want to try to support our Getty as best as we can. Unfortunately, we did lose the Emerald to the Jervis. Is there a second Jervis? No. Interesting. Okay, Moss is over there, so it's either a Fubuki or an Akatsuki here.
I need intelligence data.
Our guy is spotted.
Direct front.
It is the Akatsuki, and he slips around the side of the island as well. That is less than ideal. Our destroyer was spotted due to sonar. Narrowly avoids getting annihilated. We've actually got to be very careful here, because we could easily get torp rushed by either the cruiser or the destroyer at this point. So we're going to move into the cap. We're going to start to turn away. We're going to rotate. Never mind. We don't have much of a choice here. Try to bait him into shooting torps at the left side.
Spotter returning to ship.
We've sunk an enemy
Yeah,
destroyer.
this guy actually waited to launch his
Torpedoes to
torpedoes.
port.
So that was pretty smart. So we're dead here. Not much we can do about that. We knew it was coming. There was just nothing we could do. We tried to bait him in.
Damage.
We actually survived. That's huge.
We're hold below the water line. We're flooding quickly.
We tried to bait in his torps early and try to anticipate when he launches his torps to survive. Unfortunately, our destroyer just got himself murdered by the cruiser who had him right. Like, the sonar of that cruiser's been running for so long.
Problem solved, sir.
And yet, the guy still rushed out to a position where he could be shot by the cruiser. Like, that made literally no sense. That's one of those decisions that you just, like, look at and you go, I don't understand why you just made that decision. I've been in reverse for, like, 5 minutes here. I have no idea why my ship's not slowing down. Like, come on. I know that this York is probably going to YOLO rush us.
The enemy team
We're
is
trying to
taking
grab
the
this
lead.
cap. We get 1 minute before we get another, Okay, York is actually not rushing. Okay, this plane's gonna fly over. That's actually bad because the Nagato can punish us. Well, we were able to shoot it down pretty quickly. We are gonna be spotted soon. The green line is you're spotted. Okay, that's your detection range. So that's when they are going, if they get inside that green line, they're going to detect you if they have line of sight. And as you can see, he is now spotting us. We know the cruiser's here, so we're going to try to get some range between us and that cruiser if we can, because we know he has torps. We don't want to get yellow rushed twice. 15 seconds to survive to get a heal, though we don't actually have any heal, like anything that we can heal, because it was all critical damage from freaking torpedoes. So we can't actually heal.
All stations.
York is coming forward. We want to wait until he gives up an angle, potentially.
Enemy cruiser sighted.
And there you go. We only hit 3 shells on a cruiser at 3 kilometers away. That's what you don't want to see. We've got an island to try to keep a little bit of distance. The Nagato's probably going to finish us off here. He's 10 kilometers away. Cruiser's shooting at us. Nagato's getting angled here, so we're going to have to take advantage of our overmatch. Go through the bow side plating if we can. Didn't get it. Nagato's shooting AG because of that mission we talked about at the beginning of the match, or the beginning of the stream, and we're going to go down here pretty soon. There wasn't much we could do about it. We got yellow rushed by a tier 6 destroyer because our people on our side decided that they wanted to do a bunch of dumb things. Like, the destroyer had the ability to directly counter the enemy destroyer. We knew we were pushing in a little too close. We wanted to turn out. We didn't get a chance, unfortunately. He pushed right at the time that we said that we were going to start to turn out. So there wasn't much we could do about that. We tried to bait in his torps. He ended up anticipating that and then waiting until we turned back into a position where we couldn't do anything about it. We're going to go into tier 7 now. We're going to jump in the aisle. We're going to try to do better. Again, there's not much you can do. I've said it like twice during the stream. This is a rock, paper, scissors sort of environment, right? So destroyers are hard counters to battleships. Battleships are hard counters to cruisers. Cruisers are hard counters to destroyers. We saw all 3 of that play out in that match, with the exception of when I shot at the cruiser and got 3 hits and did basically no damage because overpins. But the destroyer YOLO's in. He's able to easily counter me and do a lot of damage to me very quickly because I'm very, very hard to slow down, speed up, turn, that sort of thing. It's very easy to counter me, especially at those ranges. He's going to survive most of the time. He's going to survive the first shot. Doesn't survive the second shot very often, but he usually survives the first shot, gets his torpedoes away. The destroyer got countered by the cruiser, who was clearly running sonar the entire time. The guy was spotted multiple times. I was spotted through sonar, so I know he was spotted through sonar. So he decided to go after the cruiser, which is like the worst thing he could have done there. And that got him countered. So there was nobody there at that point to counter the battleship in the middle, the cruiser in the middle. So these are all things that you got to think about during a match. Like, we anticipated what was going to happen. We just took too long to do so. So we got caught. That's all it is. While the game itself is not difficult, there is a lot of nuance to the game, and that's what a lot of people just don't pick up on. So you've got to constantly be paying attention. Now, we're in a Tier 7 match. It's actually a Tier 8, so we do have to worry about a Tier 8. Though the Tier 8 that we're going up against is not anything particularly special. It does have torpedoes, so we got to keep that in mind. Other than that, its guns don't overmatch us. It's got a pretty strong armor profile if he doesn't go full broadside or over angle. And again, this is all coming down to knowing what you're up against. This is why I always tell everybody, play as much as you can in terms of playing all the different lines so that you know what to expect. We know that their one destroyer is likely here at Alpha because he's already capturing the base. We got the Bayard out there at full range. He goes dark right as we're about to take a shot. We've got a Hipper that's over angle. We're going to anticipate him potentially backing up. The Bayard actually got punished. So we take a shot. He's actually just sitting there. And we get a Citadel on him with plunging fire. So you love to see that.
I need support.
given the fact that the Bayard's already been punished, he's very low health. The Hipper's already been punished, he's low health. The fact that we know that their destroyer here, I have 2 cruisers behind me that should be able to help counter the destroyer. We've got a Hipper with an extended range sonar. We got a Weimar also with an extended range sonar and DPM. So, in theory, these guys will help us get rid of the destroyer. In practice, they're probably going to sit there and try to shoot at this battleship for the next 5 minutes. Hipper is half health. He was able to heal some of that back, so we're going to get ready to shoot him again if we can, because getting rid of that DPM would be huge. We're going to anticipate the destroyer potentially charging us around the corner here. So we're going to turn. We've got their Bayard here, who's very low health, that we should be able to easily finish off. Just in case. There it is.
We've destroyed an enemy cruiser.
There's the Awami.
Off to a great start.
Hipper is running away. We've got a 2 cap to 1 advantage right now. Well, one of our caps haven't been capped yet, but will be soon. We're going to go for the superstructure of the Bismarck here. So the superstructure of American and German battleships, because they tend to be so tanky, their superstructures actually have more hit points allocated to them than other nations' superstructures. Now you can see our Hipper is actually starting to charge forward. So we're going to double back, try to help him out. Bismarck goes down. And now we're waiting for our front guns to rotate around. We do have the rear guns, and we want to use them if we can. So again, we want to go high. That may have been a bit of a too high of a shot here. If he turns in, we're going to miss completely, and he is turning in. So we want to take some of the heat off of our Hipper. Our Hipper is getting punished right now because he kind of pushed too far forward too quickly. Maybe he wasn't anticipating me turning back. But again, I know their destroyer's here. There's the Kagura right there. So again, if you get them spotted, take the shots. Learn to shoot them. We only got 1 hit. Again, notice that it's an overpen for 1441. That's exactly what we were talking about earlier. But Kaguro got caught inside the extended sonar, I'm assuming, of the thing. Or maybe he just started firing his guns outside of his smoke. But he goes down. We've got a Massachusetts pushing up that's slightly over angled, so I'm going to take a shot at him rather than the Awami. If Awami opens up much more, we're going to be able to punish him. But if we look at our shot, look at that tight grouping superstructure, beautiful plunging fire, you'll love to see it. But now we need to get up in here and take some hits, because that is one of the jobs of a battleship, is to take hits. Not to be stupid, but to take hits. Now, the Awami has over-angled drastically here. I should be able to kill this man with this shot. Like, he's exposing his very large, very exposed citadel. And there it is.
We've destroyed an enemy battleship.
That hull is shared between the Awami, the Izumo, the Yami, and the Musashi. They all have the exact same hull, the exact same weakness. It's very strong when angled properly, very weak when over-angled. So, knowing the weaknesses and strengths of an enemy ship, and you can see he does have torpedoes, and there they go. He's actually trying to counter our cruisers with those, and probably might actually score a hit here because they're a little too close. Not sure. Can't really see what their angle is. He does score a torpedo hit. So, nice torpedo strike by him. But we moved into the cap, didn't quite get the cap in time. But we have 3 cruisers left. One is the Hipper that we hit early that took off and ran. We have the Massachusetts that went inside the island, so I would expect to see him in the near future. And we're in a position that we can potentially help with crossfires from across the map as these guys are fighting on the other side. The enemy battleship goes down, so that leaves the 3 cruisers and the Massachusetts. One of their cruisers has not been spotted this entire game. So that means either he's played perfectly and stayed behind islands the entire game, or he's AFK and has not played and fired a shot yet. Again, little things like that you will notice throughout the battle. Hipper fires his guns. We've got a shot at him. We're going to anticipate a reaction out of him, and he is turning out. So we're going to aim high. Maybe didn't lead him enough. We're going to hit towards the back. Yeah, hit towards the back. Not enough lead on that shot. One other thing I want to point out for those of you, that whoever just fired that shot was a beautiful shot. One other thing I want to point out is when you've got a target locked, remember, I can lock and unlock a target with my right bumper. When I've got a target locked, notice the number right there with the clock next to it. That is the time it takes for my shells to get to the target. You can use that to kind of anticipate how long it's going to take for your shells to get to a target, so you can figure out where your target's going to be, so that you can put those effective shells on target, like we just did. Okay, that's something that a lot of people forget about as well. You actually have that timer. Here we're going to swing out. We're going to get the rear guns ready. We're going to anticipate a turn out here. We're going to aim high. Landed on both sides of them. That was RNG. That had nothing. We had a good aim. That time we aimed too high. He didn't turn out all the way. He just kind of turned a little bit and stayed there. We know that we have a cruiser that just captured the Charlie Cap that's in a crossfire position on us right now. So we're going to keep our eyes open for that if he decides to get lit up. We know that there's a Massachusetts nearby that we've got to keep an eye on. He's actually got a good shot at us, so we're going to turn in. We're going to take a shot with all the guns. Go ahead, use our last heal. We aimed high, going for that side plating. This is actually a Baltimore. We already talked about this, how we overmatch, but that Baltimore's getting slapped around. He fired AP, so he's going to get a couple of good pins here. The Baltimore has very good, heavy armor-piercing rounds. But unfortunately for him, he's not long for this world. Whether by my hand, which is on the way, rear turrets are going to make it around that island. Down he goes.
Enemy cruiser destroyed.
Now we're angled pretty well against the Massachusetts here. We're close enough to where we can swing out and get the rear guns involved if we need to. But also close enough to where we can actually angle against him if we need to as well. We can look up. He's actually coming towards us. He is over angled, so we're going to aim high. Get it over the top. Beautiful shot.
Enemy battleship sunk.
Our victory is in sight.
Now we've got their Kuchezov. Finally got himself spotted, which I'll be honest, it's pretty impressive. If the guy's been playing the entire game, he's played it perfectly, because this is the first time he's been spotted the entire game. So now that we know that he's there, we're going to have a chance to potentially take him down. Ah, he turned in right as we fired. Maybe he'll turn back out. I don't know. I think we're going to land high. I think we're going to get overpins if we hit him at all. Yeah, one overpin on the superstructure. Another 1,441. That's why I hate that number so much. It's the worst number on the planet for a battleship, is the overpin number. We hate it. We hate it. But here you can see it's going to take 10.2 seconds, 10.3 seconds. The further he gets away, the longer it's going to take. So we're going to aim high again. Anticipate him just sailing in a straight line here. Just going to aim straight over the bow. Should get some plunging fire. We could citadel him with this kind of plunging fire, but we didn't. We know their Hipper's close by, and we got to be careful because these islands, the Hipper could easily ambush us. I'm assuming he's right behind this island waiting for his opportunity to ambush us. He is very hard to dev strike up close because he does have that turtleback armor that we talked about earlier. So he can potentially dev strike us, though we know he's lower health. He gets 6 torpedoes per side as well. So he could easily YOLO around this island and dev strike us. We are within sonar range. We know his sonar is 5 kilometers, I believe, as well. So we're within 5 kilometers. So he is, in fact, sitting on the backside of this island just waiting to ambush us with torpedoes. I'm hoping that by going back here that we kind of caught him off guard. Now, obviously, he knows exactly what we're doing because he's seeing us. He's spotting us through the island. He's going forward. That's going to put him in perfect position for our cruisers to finish out. And we have the Amagi there. We actually have Weimar and our battleship behind us. You can see, this is the kind of thing that, as you get into higher tiers, you start to remember. And our Amagi is able to finish him off. Weimar did some good damage there as well. But these are the things that you look for, the things that you can anticipate before it happens. The more experience you have, the more you can plan these things. This is why it's so important for me to be able to make these kinds of videos, because while I may not be the best player, I do have the basic concept, basic understanding, and I think I'm over 10,000 games, but 120,000 damage, 2,400 base, 4 kills, denied the Kraken. Probably could have been a little more aggressive there at the end and went for that kill on the Hipper for the Kraken. But I didn't want to. I wanted to showcase, anticipating what he was doing, and we avoided getting dev struck because of it. Okay, so let's look at my stats real quick. Not to boast or anything, but I just want to point out that I do have 13,000 battles played, but that's overall battles. If we go into the stats and go in here, you can see that we actually have 10,900 battles completely of standard battles. Okay, so with 10,900 battles under my belt, I've seen a lot of things. I understand what the enemy is trying to force me to do, and I can learn from those mistakes that I've made in the past. I tend to be more aggressive than anybody else in battleships in most scenarios. So don't take my playstyle as the playstyle that is the best, okay? Find your own playstyle, what works for you. Play and learn which line benefits that playstyle, which build benefits that playstyle. Play around with stuff, but learn from your mistakes. Learn what you did wrong, where you did it wrong, and then you'll be able to anticipate things like that. And the Destroyer, we showcased the Destroyer actually played it smart. He anticipated what I was going to do, which is just trying to lure him in to launching his torps following the white line. He anticipated that, waited till I made my move where I thought he had already launched his torpedoes, and then he was able to dev strike me, or almost dev strike me. So it's a chess game at the end of the day, right? So it's rock, paper, scissors, and chess combined, right? You're constantly trying to outthink the other players. Okay? And I love those 1v1 engagements because that really does get you into the head of the other player. And so hopefully you guys have enjoyed this stream. I know it's a different... Oh my God! I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Devin coming and dropping a $55 Canadian bomb on the chat. My God, my dude. Damn. Thank you so much, my dude. Appreciate you. Thank you to everybody. Also, Hart, thank you for re-upping your membership for 3 months. Good Lord. Appreciate you, man. But try not to get too much into stats early in the game. If you want to get into stats when you've been playing for a while, then that's fine. But early in the game, focus on learning your ships, learning the enemy ships. Just play as much as you can of the different lines. Play all of the different lines. Find what works for you, and then learn what you're going up against so that you can utilize the strengths and the weaknesses to your advantage. Pay attention to what you do wrong. When you die, pay attention to what happened. Did you overextend? Did you get away from help? Did you kind of yellow into the middle of a cap in a battleship like I did in the one match in the New York? Did you do anything that puts you in a bad position that allows you to easily be taken out? These are the things that you can use later on to go, okay, there's a Hipper on the backside of an island. He's going to use a sonar to keep me spotted so that he can set up an ambush, and you can avoid it. You can see it coming. You can avoid it that way. But I know this is a different kind of stream. I do apologize if you guys were coming in hoping for like a normal, like full gameplay stream. But I did put it in the title. This is a stream for new players. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you may have learned something from some of the most basic knowledge that's out there. And if you like what I'm doing, punch the like button. Leave a comment below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And as always, I will see you in the next video.